Today on CityCast Boise, Star used to be a one-street farm town that bragged about having more cows than people, but that's changing fast. Rachel Spacek from the Idaho Statesman is here to tell us how locals are dealing with growth and how density might not mean the same thing out in the sticks as it does in Boise. It's Monday, May 22nd. I'm Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to CityCast Boise.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about Star, Idaho, which is in Ada County, northwest of Boise, for people who don't know. And 20 years ago, when I was young, the community was like basically still like a little cowpoke town with ranches and farms everywhere and like one road going through it. What's it like today?
It's kind of funny that you mentioned the 20 years ago thing because Star wasn't actually officially incorporated as a city until 1997. Which is really crazy to me to think about that. But yeah, so today it's downtown Star is still kind of small. I think it's embracing its cowboy ranchingness out there. But if you go north of the city, of the downtown area, that's where a lot of the development is happening. Those are the big houses, the big subdivisions made up of like anywhere from 200 to like 800 homes. And these are big properties and they're on an acre or more out there, which is kind of unusual these days in our growing valley. But yeah, so it's growing quite a lot. I know the city is working on expanding State Street that runs through the downtown because, it's 2 lanes and that's their main highway. So lots of stuff happening over there.
Yeah, it went from like 1,000 people in 2000 to a projected 24,000 in 2040. What happened? Like, do we have a sense of who is moving to Star or why people are choosing it?
I don't have the full answer, everyone's reason, but I've talked to the mayor a lot in my Star coverage, Trevor Chadwick, and he says that they saw a lot of the boom during the pandemic years. Some of it has happened in the early 2000s, but they've seen quite an influx since 2019. And he says a lot of people from out of state are coming. He says he often hears it's for political reasons. Star is a very conservative city and, not a lot of COVID protocols during the pandemic. And actually in 2020, Star City Council passed a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution, which basically means if any gun laws were to pass, they would ask their, city not to enforce those laws. And, the mayor, Trevor Chadwick, told me that he's heard that that's kind of a reason. And politics in general is a reason why a lot of people might be moving from states like California or Oregon. But I think, there might be some movement through the valley. A lot of people are kind of frustrated about the growth in Nampa, Meridian, Boise, and they might, want these bigger properties and more land out in Star.
Well, let's talk about this Willowbrook subdivision proposal, which would bring about 1,000 single-family homes on half-acre lots. And you've been covering this really closely. Set the scene for us with this big meeting about it recently. What was the vibe?
Willowbrook subdivision, it would bring about 1,000 homes to kind of north of downtown Star. It would also bring a 18-hole golf course, which is kind of interesting. And the city has been, when the developer applied, the city put all of the application materials up on their website, because I think that they were expecting lots of people to be interested in this development because, Star is still a small city. So when someone talks about bringing in 1,000 homes and a golf course, people are going to talk about it. And so I think they were expecting a lot of attention to be on this subdivision. And so last week, They finally had a city council meeting. Their Star still has a really small city hall. It kind of just looks like a strip mall type of area. So they actually had the city council meeting in a church, and people filled the church auditorium. Lots of people to testify. Pretty much everyone was against bringing this development into Star, arguing everything from we don't want this kind of density to we don't have the type of city services to accommodate all of these new people. So, it was quite big news and quite a happening meeting in Star.
Yeah, in your article about the meeting, you said that people kept talking about density and that they're really worried that the Willowbrook homes will be too close together, which is kind of hilarious because we're talking about homes that are on like half acre, 1.5 acre lots. That's the proposal, right?
Yeah. So the proposal is that the homes would be, it's at least a home per half acre lot. So, and I think a lot of us like city folk don't know maybe exactly what an acre looks like, but it's very large. Like I don't think I know anyone who lives on an acre.
We live in West Boise. We have a half acre lot and it feels like we live in a park. Like I feel like we have so much space. It feels just wide. After living in a 2-bedroom apartment, I'm like, oh my gosh, we live in an actual park. So yeah, that seems like a huge amount of space, I think, to a lot of people outside of Star.
Yeah, a lot of space. And so at issue here is there are two major neighborhood subdivisions around where Willowbrook would go. And these homes are technically not in Star city limits. They're in just Ada County. So, Ada County properties are often bigger than what is in the city limits. But, the homes surrounding this project are on full acres, multiple acres. There's even a couple homes, I think it might be 20 around there that are on 10-acre lots, kind of in that area. So a lot of the people who came to this hearing are saying that, it's not a proper transition from these full acre lots to half acre lots. So, it's definitely different out there. 10 acres, is a lot different than what we're seeing in Boise or even places like Meridian, even Nampa. I don't know how many properties they're approving that are on 10-acre lots.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny juxtaposition with, their definition of density being so different than what we're hearing about in the Boise zoning code rewrite right now. I'm kind of wondering what, since you've spent a lot of time talking to people from Star, what does this conversation about density in Star tell you about the different parts of the Boise metro?
Yeah, it's really interesting because in Star, I think that there might be a couple of apartments, maybe even just like one apartment building in like downtown Star. But, you go and maybe there are some townhome subdivisions, but, you go out past Boise, past Meridian, and there are no apartments. They're pretty much mostly single family homes, and they're big single family homes. They often use like well water, things like that. And so it's interesting. And I think it kind of shows the, difference in what Boise is talking about versus many of the other cities in Ada County. People in Star consider half an acre to be too dense in their neighborhoods, while people in Boise, I think Boise is really kind of coming to terms with the lack of affordable housing or housing in general. And that's not something that the city of Star is focused on. I think I can't predict what will happen with this Willowbrook subdivision, but I could see the city asking the developer to expand the lot sizes, making it one home per 1 acre, something like that, just to kind of appease the people who are frustrated. But it's definitely really interesting, kind of that more urban rural divide, just a few miles up State Street from like downtown Boise, north end of Boise. You see people who are frustrated with half-acre lots. So it's definitely really interesting, and it shows the divide between the cities and the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, and you mentioned infrastructure earlier, and I'm wondering, besides the density, I imagine there's probably some pretty real concerns about schools, police, fire, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wrote a story, it might have been a year ago, but Star was really concerned, even without this Willowbrook proposal being on the city agenda. They were concerned that they don't have enough police officers to, service the whole city of Star. And people were worried that adding 1,000 more homes, multiple thousand more people, children, that the city wouldn't have the police services to respond to calls up there. Fire as well, as you kind of move into the hills in more rural areas. Fire is definitely a concern, and fire response times and police response times, even in Meridian, where it's a much bigger city, is a concern. Traffic is a huge concern, and the schools are another issue because Star uses, I think, mostly West Ada schools, and West Ada is struggling already with overcrowding in its schools, trying to fix, dilapidated buildings. So pretty much everything is a concern with infrastructure up there.
So what's next for the Willowbrook proposal? What happens now?
The city heard all of the public testimony and kind of heard a rebuttal from the developer. And so in early June is when the city is going to make a decision, whether to approve or deny it. And so we'll see in their next meeting what they do.
Do you have a sense? Do you think it'll go through? Have any idea what might happen?
I could see kind of the city council listening to the concerns of residents and asking the developer to maybe try to increase the acreage. So I could maybe see them going up to 1 home per acre. But during the city council meeting, the developer kind of pushed back against that and said that they want the half-acre lots because they're trying to avoid sprawl, which I feel like is a kind of bad word for developing cities. So we'll see. I honestly don't know. I could see them approving it as is, or asking the developer to kind of make some amendments.
Growth and change always come with negative feelings. We've seen that kind of over and over with different developments around Boise. But is anybody in Star happy or excited about these changes? Like, it's got to have some positive economic impact, too.
I think the mayor, I think he is, trying to grapple with the feelings of his constituents, not wanting growth, kind of wanting their small, rural city to kind of remain as it is. But, as a mayor, you kind of have to realize that the city has to make money in order to fund the infrastructure projects needed to accommodate this growth. So I think he is, looking forward to the property taxes that new developments will bring in. I know the city council is really advocating for more businesses and more, commercial development, grocery stores, office buildings, that kind of thing. So I do think the city is hoping for some positive impacts of growth.
Have you talked to anybody in Star and who has seen their little town change so much recently? And have any of those stories really stuck with you?
Yeah, so I wrote a piece maybe a year or two ago, just kind of generally looking at growth in Star. I talked to a woman, she owns a daycare in Star. Her name was Donna, and she, talked about really back in the day getting to know all of the parents at her daycare. And oftentimes having open spots, getting to know a lot of kids. And now she says that parents are, trying to get into her childcare center before there are even spots open. So I think there are a lot of things that people do miss about their small town. There are definitely more cars than cows now, more houses than cows. And that's something that I think a lot of people, even if you're not a farmer, but I think a lot of people are kind of nostalgic for that more farm-oriented lifestyle in Star.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I've watched it changed, around here a lot, and there's a lot of grief in that. I think in watching your small town turn into a big town, turn into a city. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you, Rachel. We appreciate you coming on and letting us know about this really big development in Star. And yeah, keep us updated.
Will do. Thank you so much.
And speaking of housing, an update on a story we talked about a while back. Boise Dev is reporting that the developer who proposed converting a Boise Bench assisted living facility into regular apartments has withdrawn the application just days after it was approved. While this might seem like a win for residents, councilperson Colin Nash expressed concern that with the application withdrawn, quote, current residents are at a risk of being evicted on these month-to-month leases. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Leave us a review and subscribe to our Hey Boise newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow for a fun and very lively chat with Boise School Board trustee Shiva Rajbandari. Bye.